would be going to retire within 1 to 4 years. This is year 3. It could have been earlier, but then we had COVID, you might recall. Leah Purcell also retired. And we, this past year, hired Olga as our director of music ministry, as she prefers. And we also hired Elizabeth Valdez as our permanent director of religious education. And that kept me here at least a year to follow through to get them settled. And here are some of the factors that are not driving my decision. My health is good right now, and I have plenty of energy and stamina. I have no other job opportunity waiting for me or congregation. And I anticipate that my work with the UUA board will continue for at least another year, which would be my 3rd year of my term, my 3-year term. There are some, however, factors that are contributing to my decision. The death of the Reverend Robert Eller Isaacs at the age of 71, who was my minister in Oakland, California, who also inspired me in my process of going into the ministry. That his death really deeply affected me. My soon-to-be 92-year-old father's health has been declining. He has a metastasized bladder cancer, thankfully slow growing. And he has told me that he is 1 kidney infection away from death, which was another sobering thing to receive that information. My wife has fallen twice this past spring and had 2 surgeries to repair 2 parts of her bone in her hip. And she has a birthday in May that has a 0 at the end coming up. She didn't really like me using her as an excuse, but it's a factor. And there's some more traveling that we'd like to do as well. And for about 30 years, I've wanted to do longer Buddhist mindfulness meditation retreats that are more advisable than are possible in full-time ministry. And I'd like to be able to do that while I have the physical energy and stamina to do it, because they are pretty demanding. And I just signed up for a 3-month retreat that will start September 12th. And I've got some creative ideas and projects that wouldn't be possible to pursue while serving in full-time ministry. In February, I will be 66, and I'll have the opportunity to take full Social Security retirement in August. So these are all factors. If I could sum it all up, I'd say this: my first act was being a computer test engineer in Silicon Valley. My second act has been my call to ministry. And I sense there is yet a 3rd act for my life. Time is short, and the freedom to make that move is within reach. I have deep gratitude for the call to serve you as your minister for these last 23 years. We have done some great work together. We were instrumental in a regional initiative supporting empowerment, Arise, and its successes doing ministry in congregational-based community organizing. We're able to build this together, which every time I stand here, I still feel incredibly inspired to be able to speak in this space. We contributed to and advocated for marriage equality together. We've worked creating the Pastoral Care Associates team. We've also worked on the transformational work of the Wellspring program, small group ministry, Meaning Matters, all programs that have created ways that people can get to know each other in small groups, stimulate their growth and development, and build community. And some have found peace together meditating on Sunday morning. I have deep appreciation for what we have been able to do together. We both have grown in so many ways that I cherish. We are both better able to step into positive futures. I'm ever so grateful to have had the opportunity to serve here in Albany, and hope that my legacy will be the ways we've grown together as we've expanded our capacity to love each other. Thank you. And Peggy, let us read together. The reading, you can start.
At the Leland Opera House on Sunday, March 24th, 1895, William Brundage spoke to our newly reconstituted congregation after a 15-year hiatus. There were 19 women and 26 men present that first night who were eligible to vote on his call. Reverend Brundage's first sermon to the Unitarians was titled, "The Program of the New Church." In it, he described his call to move from serving as a Methodist minister to Unitarian. While still a minister at Trinity Methodist Episcopal Church, Reverend Brundage witnessed the process by which the Unitarian Church modified its doctrinal stance at Saratoga Springs, September 24th through 27th, 1894. This had a great impact on him.
He said, "I shall never forget the scene that I witnessed on that occasion. I was present merely as a spectator. I had not yet made up my mind to enter the fellowship of the Unitarian Church. I was entirely unprepared for what I saw and heard. I had long known that there were two schools of thought among Unitarians, the radical school and the conservative school. I knew that a very important decision was to be reached at this particular meeting of the conference. The committee had been appointed to report a revised constitution for the national conference, and it was expected that the report of this committee would excite considerable controversy. The hour came for the reading of the report. Dr. Edward Everett Hale, the chairman of the committee, rose and declared that the committee was unanimous in the report that it was about to make. And he called upon the Reverend Minot Savage of Boston to read the report. There was the most intense interest manifested while the reading took place. The report recommended the basis of fellowship as love to God and love to man. The great majority of the 600 delegates present were ready to vote immediately upon the acceptance of the report. But the minority asked for more time for consideration. The request was generously granted by the majority, and the conference adjourned without taking a vote. This was the morning session.
Brundage continues. In the afternoon, the conference came together to consider and act upon the report. The great convention hall was well filled, despite the fact that the Democratic Party was holding its state convention in Saratoga at the same hour. After a brief discussion, it was moved and seconded that the vote for acceptance of the report be taken by acclamation. The motion prevailed. "Are you ready for the question?" called out Senator Hoare of Massachusetts, who was president of the convention. "All who are in favor of adopting the report of the committee will manifest it by saying aye." A mighty aye from 600 voices roared through the hall. "Those who are opposed," said the president. There was a moment of breathless silence. The entire audience leaned forward to listen. "It is a unanimous vote," declared the president.
Brundage recall the tumult that followed. I have witnessed many enthusiastic scenes, but never one that exceeded the enthusiasm that followed in that Unitarian convention. The audience rose to its feet with one burst of enthusiastic applause. Handkerchiefs were waved, hats were swung, while loud cheers filled the hall. Cries for the doxology were heard from all quarters. And the audience rose and broke out in these words, which were sung by many with tears of joy filling their eyes. From all that dwell below the skies, let the Creator's praise arise. Let the Redeemer's name be sung through every land by every tongue. The old 100th doxology is still sung in many UU congregations now with more universal words, yet the same spirit of love flowed through them in 1894. Let us sing that now. You'll see the words come up on the screen for the more universalized version. I encourage you to sing this together. And look at this. Our music director is here to help us. Want to play it through once? From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of love and hope arise. Let peace and will on earth be sung. Oh, every land by every tongue. Thank you so much. Let's hold those words in our hearts as we enter silent meditation. I'm bringing you along on my trip to Florida here. When you see the video, this is from the botanical gardens in Miami Beach. Here are two paragraphs from the proposed Article 2 revision of the Unitarian Universalist bylaws. The purpose of the Unitarian Universalist Association is to actively engage its members in the transformation of the world through liberating love. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to that, to one another, for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Putting love at the center of Unitarian Universalism may provoke some controversy. I know some folks who have already objected. They see the distinctive center of Unitarian Universalism in other values such as reason, freedom, tolerance, the use of the mind in religion. Some more contemporary folks might put interdependence at the center, the well-being of the planet, protecting biodiversity of life, the great Mother Earth, on whose beneficence we are completely dependent. Why put any one value at the center, given the preciousness of all these values? Up until the humanist controversy that began in the 1920s, after the horror of World War I, both Unitarians and Universalists defined themselves as Christians of the Enlightenment. Their application of the mind and reason to religion focused on demystifying it. No Trinity, no virgin birth, no miracles. The embrace of evolution and the advance of science. They sought a liberal religion that a well-educated person in an increasingly multicultural, multi-religious world could accept. This kind of thinking came to us here in Albany through the Reverend William Brundage, just before the beginning of the 20th century. The conference in Saratoga Springs in 1894 followed the influential Parliament of World Religions in Chicago in 1893. Many Unitarians and Universalists were present at this amazing event. Minds were expanding about religious thought. So the unanimous acceptance of the great commandments as our center was monumental for both Christians and Jews in our congregation. What brought them together? Love. Throughout our Unitarian and Universalist histories, love comes up a lot. As they were using their analytical minds to penetrate Scripture, seeking truth overlooked and suppressed by the Catholic Church, they moved away from orthodoxy to orthopraxy. They moved away from refining doctrine for correct worship of Christ toward the process of putting Jesus's teachings in action. Rather than worship Jesus, our purpose should be to follow him. And what did Jesus do? He taught a radical kind of love that still challenges people today to practice. The 20th century brought the movement of Unitarianism and Universalism away from Christianity and the worship of God as being the center of our faith. What replaced it was an individualism that put each person in charge of discovering their own sources of faith. Even the word faith was disputed as central to our religious identity. Developing personal rules for ethical living would be sufficient without any reference to a higher power than the self. Yet a sense of community, a sense of care for each other remained as a core value for almost all of our congregations. This softer version of Jesus's radical ideas about love remained even in the atheist and humanist hearts. Love started to have a comeback in the beginning of the 21st century. Here are some of the factors that supported that transition. Women started revolutionizing Unitarian Universalism back in the 1970s. Their numbers started growing in our ministry and tipped over to being the majority at the beginning of the new millennium. This supported the movement away from head-centered Sunday services and practice toward heart-centered services and practice. At the same time, there was a growing interest in spiritual practice and experiential religion. Again, moving out of the head and into the body and to the heart. I was part of that movement that started with the curriculum like Cakes for the Queen of Heaven, some of you might remember, and the introduction of yoga and meditation groups in many of our congregations. The marriage equality movement back in 2004 focused heavily on the sanctity of same-gender loving relationships. Unitarian Universalism was heavily identified with that movement through the Standing on the Side of Love campaign that is now called Side with Love. It continues to be a powerful way to organize our social justice work, focusing on love and justice. The Teal hymn book, Singing the Journey, that was published in 2005, was has some powerful songs that focus on love as the center of our faith. Songs like Answering the Call of Love. When our heart is in a holy place, we begin again in love. Another way to approach the question of love being at the center of Unitarian Universalism is to look at what we do in our congregations. The obvious examples of love in action in our congregations are the Caring Network and the Pastoral Care Associates. When someone has an illness or injury that incapacitates them, the Caring Network volunteers are there with meals, with offers of transportation, shopping for needed items, and other offers of support during their time of need. Pastoral Care Associates are skilled listeners who give supportive attention to those who are working through challenging emotional setbacks and situations. Sometimes having someone who can just listen can make all the difference in recovering from a stressful situation or an event in one's life. Participation as a guide in our religious education program can be a fulfilling way to offer loving attention to our children and youth. This can be an opportunity for those of us without children or grandchildren to offer caring attention that help children grow and develop. Our whole lives curriculum of sexuality and relationships training is one of the great programs that we offer our youth to help them develop loving, respectful, and supportive relationships. Singing in our choir. Singing in our choir can be an act of love, a ministry of music for our congregation through creating inspirational music together. Other Sunday morning opportunities such as ushering, greeting people at the door, being a service associate, performing musical selections are all gifts of service to our congregation that help build a positive Sunday morning experience. And there are opportunities, many opportunities, for offering care and support that are part of our social justice work as well. though I don't think it's fully back after to the pre-COVID levels. Being a teacher's aide or tutoring at Sheridan Academy was a special way that we can offer love to the children of our West Hill community. Recently, we've partnered with Planned Parenthood to make care packages for people who've just recently had an abortion. It is an act of anonymous care that can be deeply appreciated at an emotionally stressful time in a woman's life. All of our green sanctuary work to respond to the threat of climate change and species extinction have an implicit love of our planet and the land under our feet. Our inclusivity work, which strives to end racism and oppression, which dehumanizes people and from marginalized identities, it is an act of care and love to strive to eliminate these diseases from our dominant culture. Just about everything that happens here is about affirming and promoting the well-being of people, an act of love all by itself. But you might object and say, this is true for all churches, synagogues, mosques, viharas, and religious centers of every stripe. Yes, I'd respond, and we have a unique way of doing it. What's different about the love we offer and receive is we don't identify and name the source of that love. We don't say that this is God's love flowing through us, or Jesus's love, or Allah's love, or any special divine expression. We also don't deny that it might be God's love working through us. What we do know is love is a real human experience that we can cultivate. We know that the more we offer love to each other and those around us, the stronger the community that we can build together. And there is always more potential for love than any of us can offer or receive. In that way, it is like the sun that shines on us all. We can only absorb so much. That's why I wore my sun tie today. We only have so much stamina to be able to care for each other. That's why we come together in community to build the interconnected web of love that nourishes us all. By leaving the source open, we model a way toward a pluralism that can share love in an inclusive way. As John Wesley said, it's often incorrectly attributed to the Transylvanian Unitarian Francis David, we need not think alike to love alike. I'd like to close with these slightly adapted words of William Brundage from his first sermon to illustrate the vision of love that he brought to our congregation in 1895 that continues to live in us and among us. First, love to God, then love to man, love to all, because they are children of God, and we are all brethren one with another. Not love that wastes itself in sentimental expression, but love that serves, love that uplifts, love that saves. This is the love of humanity that Jesus taught, that Jesus lived. It is the love of practical beneficence, the love that counts no sacrifice too great, too costly, if only thereby we can be led to realize our divine kinship. If only thereby the tiger and the ape yet lingering within humanity may be finally subdued. The love, I say, that embodies itself in all noble reforms, in all the humanitarian movements of our day, in all disinterested efforts towards a more equitable social order, toward a noble and worthier state. This is our religion. May it be so.
Good morning, I'm Peggy Sherman, your service associate. Before I introduce the offering, we need to note that with the exception of OWL for grades 8 and 9, Sunday morning programming for children and youth ends at 11:15. If you have children in pre-K through 5th grade, please pick them up from their classrooms at the time. Older kids will be released on their own to reconnect with their grown-ups. Please feel free to leave the service when it's time to pick up your children. An important way we celebrate life each Sunday is by offering an opportunity to practice generosity. Members and friends support our congregation with an annual pledge paid throughout the year. Another way to support the good work of this congregation is by making a generous contribution as we pass the plate, or via one of the options shown on the next slide. If you're joining us virtually, you can click on the tiny URL link in the chat window to contribute, or send a text to the number shown on the screen. The examples on the slide show how to label your text to indicate the amount and purpose of your gift. And we now say goodbye to our Facebook viewers. Consider joining us on Zoom next time or in person at 405 Washington Avenue in Albany. You can find more information at albanyuu.org. And our offertory music is Life Calls Us On by Jason Shelton. Words and music by Jason Shelton, performed by our wonderful Albany UU Choir.
Good morning. Your program says I'm Sharon Babila, but I'm not. But Sharon is here in the back. She's ushering and being a pastoral care associate this morning. My name is Annie Lipinski, and I am on duty today as a pastoral care associate. Before I read through my words here, I just wanted to offer you a happy day of the Lantern Festival, which is the final day of Chinese New Year. This is the time set aside in our service for sharing significant personal milestones in our lives. There are several ways to share a joy or sorrow. On Zoom, you can click on the raise hand symbol. The technician will call on you to unmute and share your joy or sorrow. Those in Community Hall will be able to come forward and select a stone to place in the bowl on the table. If you wish, you can share your joy or sorrow at the microphone right there. Please also consider sharing your joy or sorrow after the service with Sharon or me. We'll be reading items that were submitted this past week. That will be followed by spoken joys and sorrows on Zoom, and finishing with any joys and sorrows to be shared from Community Hall. Have there been any joys and sorrows submitted in advance?
There have not been any joys and sorrows submitted in advance.
And then is there anyone with a raised hand symbol on Zoom?
There are no raised hands on Zoom.
No raised hands? So anyone who would like to come forward to move a stone are now invited. If you wish to speak your joy or sorrow, you can wait with Dawn at the microphone.
On? Okay. I don't know how many of you know my son Neil, but he'd been laid up for about a year and a half and finally was lying in bed in a lot of pain, couldn't move. Had a little procedure, and after several months of physical therapy, he hoisted himself up on a walker, and by golly, I swear that kid did the hokey pokey.
As some of you know, my mother, Luba Reep, who was a member here but was not able to attend very often, died on November 30th. And I know some of you were planning to visit her before she got really sick. And even though it didn't work out to do that, I wanted to thank people for offering. And we're going to have a memorial service here in May. For anyone who is interested in attending, May 20th, I'll get more information out when we get closer to that time, and it'll be here. And I just want to thank everybody for their support at a very difficult time.
I can't tell people to dress a mask. It's up to people.
Good morning. I'm Mary Applegate, and I wanted to say I had an unexpected and touching moment of love yesterday. I discovered that the small Episcopal church in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania, where my mother was a member for many years, they have started streaming their services, and I got to watch one, which was meaningful because when my mother died 4 years ago, my siblings and I decided to donate her beloved piano. She was a pianist and music professor. We donated her piano to the church. And so this was an opportunity to see and hear that piano after many years. It was wonderful.
Good morning. My name is Brad Workman. My sorrow is my mother, Eleanor Workman, passed away peacefully in her sleep on Monday. She was 92 years old. And many of you have asked about her and how she's doing during the last couple of years. And Maria and I want to thank you very much for your love and kindness. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kate Pierce Nims, and this is my husband, Tyler. We have a joy to share, and something that has been quite challenging recently is that I am 12 weeks pregnant. We are very excited. I have been having a rough first trimester, so looking forward to things getting a little bit easier and then a lot harder.
So it turns out we have one late joy to share from Zoom. And Valerie, you can go and unmute.
And over the past couple of weeks, I've had to take plus a cello assignment because I was sick 3 weeks ago, and I've aced every single.
Thank you.
Let's turn inward. I'd like to offer this prayer by Georgia Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock, thinking about the events of the past month in July and January. May God bless the memory of Tyree Nichols. I pray for his family during this time of unspeakable loss and grief. His life mattered. Tragically, we have been here time and time again. But we must never accept injustice and cruelty as the price for public safety. This has to stop. I'm praying for Memphis during this challenging time for their community. Today, we are all Memphis. May we raise our voices in solidarity and peaceful protest against this injustice in Memphis and all across the country. And may we never stop working until we transform the culture of bias and brutality and pass the kind of legislation that is necessary to keep all of our communities safe. Amen.
As we move towards the end of today's service, we'd like to get to know guests and visitors. If you'd like to tell us who you are and where you're from, those here in Community Hall should stand or raise your hand. The usher will bring you a microphone so everyone can hear you. Those joining us on Zoom can click on the raise hand symbol. Our technician will invite you to unmute and introduce yourself. You can also click on the visitor link you'll find now in the chat window. Do we have visitors today?
This is my dear friend Joyce. We've been friends since 9th grade in Del Mar. We're Del Martians from way back, and she's been coming a couple times, and we're really glad to have her. Do you want to?
Well, I just want to say I went to the Silver Bay retreat, and I met a lot of wonderful, welcoming people, and I decided maybe this would be a community I'd want to be more a part of.
Do we have any hands raised on Zoom?
We have one hand on Zoom. 1 second, and I will have them unmute. Go ahead, Bill. You can just unmute.
Good morning. My name is Bill Mells. I attend the Canandaigua Unitarian Universalist Church, and I bring you greetings from them. And on behalf of our Canandaigua settled minister, the Reverend Eileen Casey Campbell.
We're not hearing anything in Community
Oh,
Hall.
Sorry, that's my bad. Go ahead, Bill.
okay. My name is Bill Mells. I bring you greetings from the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua in Canandaigua, New York, where our settled minister is the Reverend Eileen Casey Campbell, who was once an intern there with Reverend Trumbore. And it's a great pleasure to be able to join you all today for the service. Thank you for the service.
And next we have Marilyn. Go ahead, you can unmute.
This is Arden and Marilyn Doctor saying hello from Ormond Beach, Florida.
Hmm.
We miss everybody.
That's where they are.
And I think that's all the hands we have on Zoom.
Thank you and welcome to all who have joined us today. If you'd like to learn more about our congregation or Unitarian Universalism, you can stop by the table in the lobby and speak with our welcome table host. On Zoom, you can find in the participant window someone with welcome before their name. You can reach out to that person in the chat window, and there'll also be opportunities after the service, both on Zoom and here in person. And I have this announcement. On Friday, February 10th, Madeline Riley, the Public Affairs Manager from Upper Hudson Planned Parenthood, will discuss the current state of abortion access in the U.S. Plan to join us for a Thai dinner in Channing at 5:30, followed by the important presentation at 6:30 and the film in Community Hall. RSVP to Sandy Stone by February 5th. That's today. And the details of how to reach Sandy are in your order of service. And we have these closing words from Frederick E. Gillis. May the love that overcomes all differences, that heals all wounds, that puts to flight all fears, that reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. Amen. And these from Sarah Moores Campbell. We receive fragments of holiness, glimpses of eternity, brief moments of insight. Let us gather them up for the precious gifts they are, and renewed by their grace, move boldly into the unknown. And our closing hymn is number 354. As we extinguish the chalice, please join in the words shown on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Those on Zoom are encouraged to join a breakout room for conversation and fellowship. You can click to accept the assignment when it appears on your screen. Those in Community Hall are invited to attend coffee hour. Anyone in Zoom or here is welcome to attend a congregational response to discuss the service. You can stay in the same Zoom meeting or right here in Community Hall, and the discussion will begin in a few minutes. Those wishing to socialize with others are asked to exit Community Hall so the congregational response can start promptly. We're glad you joined us today. This concludes our service.